Hello everyone, thanks for checking out today's video. My name is Chris. We talk all about koi pond, water garden, pond filtration, waterfalls, streams, aquatic plants, fish, the whole bit here. Anything having to do with garden ponds, I probably have a video on it. I have a ton of stuff here. Hopefully some videos that can help you out, answer some questions, and help make your pond experience a little bit better. Please use the playlists here on my channel to help navigate, find your way around, as I have different categories, subject matters broken down into different playlists so you can find things a little bit easier. I also have a website called pondscapesandmore.com where I have a ton of pictures and photos and information about products and all kinds of good stuff. If you'd like to check that out, I certainly appreciate your support with that. Today's video, we are looking at how to seam liners together. We're going to talk about seaming liners together, and we're going to talk about possibly like patching a liner or fixing a hole in the liner. If we have a tear or cut, something like that. So the first thing I want to talk about is, okay, obviously we're talking about a 45 mil rubber liner, EPDM liner, something similar to this, all right? Nice heavy duty. They are a little stretchy, little flexible, but this is pretty much the standard when it comes to the type of lining material that we should be using for ponds. Really nice, durable. It's able to, conform to any size or shape of pond. Of course, when you put it down, you're going to have a couple folds and creases and all that kind of stuff in the pond because you're putting a square piece of liner into a round or curved hole, right? So we're going to have to fold it and stuff. But overall, it's very durable. It's very stretchy. If we have rocks or roots or something in the ground, this can stretch over it. Very adaptable, easy to use. It's great when we need to seal bottom drains into it with silicone and a flange, installing a skimmer through it, stuff like that. The rubber seals really well, and silicone, all that stuff, not a problem. Works really well with this stuff. So basically, we're talking about this 45 mil EPDM rubber liner, and then we have it's called a primer, but it's actually the glue. There is a glue, and then we have two different types of patches here, or seam tape as they're called. This one is a 6-inch. It's a single-sided tape, meaning that on one side it's not sticky, and the other side, right, we peel this off and it has a very adhesive backing on it, okay? So that's what sticks to it. So there's a 6-inch single-sided seam tape, and then there is a double-sided seam tape, which is smaller. It's about a 3-inch, and then it has stick on both sides. All right, so we're going to talk about both of these, how to use both of them, how I use them, what has worked for me. And this is just another example of a single-sided seam tape. Okay, it has this one has a clear clear backing on the back that we can pull off, and it's sticky. It's pretty hard to get started here, but it'll pull off, okay, like this, and you can stick that onto your liner. So we'll talk all about this, how to use this stuff. Let's do it. Okay, so when seaming two pieces of liner together, okay, the most important thing is that they have to be clean. Ideally, we want new pieces, of liner that we're putting together. So let's say seam tape is used primarily, mostly if we're doing a pond that's bigger than the size of the pond liner that's available. So let's just say liner, we have a size liner, it's 50 by 50, okay, and we need a 50 by 70. All right, so we have to add another 20 feet onto our 50-foot liner. Okay, so we're going to take our 50-foot liner, lay it all out, use our glue, use our seam tape, and then use the extra 20 foot of liner and attach it to there. to it, okay? So something like that works really well. Now, the most common thing that I hear anyway, is I have clients that maybe have an older pond and they want to make it bigger. So they're saying, well, maybe we can, you know, rip out the old pond basically, but use the old pond liner and just seam a new piece of liner to it and extend the pond out, okay? Now, that's possible in some cases. It can be possible, but I don't recommend it, all right? If you're gonna do something like that, rip out the liner, do one whole new liner, okay? It's much safer than having to seam it. Reason being, you have an old liner that's dirty. Sometimes they really get embedded with algae and sediment, dirt and everything else, and it's really, really hard to get that old liner really clean to put your seam a new liner to it. The other thing is sometimes your old pond liner is going to have all kinds of folds or creases in it. And again, it's very hard to put a new piece of liner in adapted to those folds and creases that it's going to provide 100% watertight seal, all right? The other thing is we have to consider is, you know, if you have an older pond, you know, maybe it's 10, 15 years old. I mean, it's not that old, but it's getting older, right? If you're going to put an old liner, you know, keep an old liner on one side and put a brand new piece on the other side, to me, it just kind of doesn't make sense. It's almost like building a new house on top of a 50-year-old, 100-year-old foundation. All right, I don't get that. All right, I want it all new. All right, so whenever we can build a pond with one solid piece of liner, that's always going to be much more preferable, at least in my book, than having to seam 2 or 3 pieces together, you know, to accomplish this, you know, the same thing. Okay, if we can use one solid piece, do it. All right. Now, when it comes to seaming liners together, we're going to talk about that here. I have 2 pieces of liner here. I'll try to do my best to show you, you know, what we're talking about. So what we need here is we're going to have 1 piece of liner, and we're going to seam this piece here on top of it. All right. So obviously we need some overlap. All right. We don't want to seam them together and overlap in 3 inches. We want to overlap it. Our tape is 6 inches, right? I mean, you know, we're going to put double-sided down first, however, so we want to overlap this seam at least, you know, 8-10 inches if we can. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay our liners out flat. We're going to open them up, lay our liners out flat. We're going to put our 1 piece down, and then our other liner we're going to fold over to just, you know, at the spot where they meet. Okay. We're going to use just a cheap old crappy paintbrush like this. You can get a bigger one depending on how big and how much we have to paint, to use for the glue. So the glue is a really crucial part of making this seam tape stick. All right. Again, we got to, first thing, keep that liner as clean as possible. All right. Get an old crappy paintbrush, because after you're done using the brush, you're going to throw it out. We're going to take our glue, mix up our glue, and we're going to paint that glue all here on the bottom side of the first liner, and then on the opposite side of this liner. All right. Once we have all our glue down, we just wait a couple minutes for the glue to semi-dry. We just want it to be tacky and not real wet. Okay, so once it starts just getting, you know, more solid and tacky, then we can take our double-sided tape, all right, and we're going to put our double-sided tape down on top of the glue on one liner. Okay, so we're going to run our double-sided tape down here first. All right. Once we have the double-sided tape down, then we're going to take the other end where we have the glue here, and put it down on top. All right, so we're gonna make a sandwich. The two liners with the double-sided tape, glue on both sides of the liner, double-sided tape in the middle, okay, and we're gonna flatten it out. Apply some pressure. If you have a little roller, okay, we can roll it. Just make sure it's all really nice and flat, packed down. And then, once we're done with that, I put a little bit of glue down on our seam, okay, where the two liners meet on the top. I put a little glue down on the top of that, and then we're going to take our double-sided seam tape, peel it off, and put it on top of our seam between the two, on top of the two liners, okay? So it's basically going to now cover our seam between the two. So we have a double-sided tape underneath, all glued down. We put our glue on the top part, put our seam tape, double-sided seam tape on top of that, press that down, roll that down, make sure all the air bubbles are out of it and it's nice and tight and flat on the top. Now another little trick that I've learned, and it might just be me, but it's just something I'm always conscious of. Whenever I'm using this glue, especially with the double-sided tape here in this instance, I don't want my glue to come outside of my patch. I want to make sure that my patch is covering all the glue that I put down. Just me. I may be wrong, but it's just something I'm conscious of. I feel that if the glue comes outside from underneath the patch that the seam tape on top, I think that glue can absorb some water, and that water can then travel under my seam tape. And if it gets in there, it's going to break the seal of the tape to the seam, okay, to the liner. So I like keeping my patch clean on top with no glue coming out from underneath it. All right, just me. Now, another key important part when you're doing this, if you're seaming two liners together like we just, I just showed you, or simply if we have a piece of liner here, and let's say we have a hole in the liner and we need to patch it, okay? An easy way to patch it is simply clean it off, clean all around our little hole, clean it, put some glue down around that hole, let that glue set and get tacky for a minute, and then cut off whatever size piece of seam tape, here that we need, and stick it down on top, okay? That can patch our hole. Now, whenever we're doing something like that, patching a hole or seaming liners together, my point here is not only make sure that the top of the liner is clean, we have to make sure that the liner, the dirt under the liner is not wet, all right? If we have a hole here, okay, let's say this liner is coming up the side of our pond here. We have a hole. Let's put a hole in it, all right? Okay, we got a good storm. We got a big branch came down, all right? Punctured a big hole in my liner here, right on the side wall of my pond. Here we go, all right? Now, obviously, we got a big hole. It's gonna leak. The water's gonna go through this. The dirt and the mud and everything here behind my pond is gonna be all wet, all right? Water and glue and this sticky, seam tape don't mix, okay? So we don't want to get our sticky, seam tape here all wet, because it's going to lose its bond, okay? So if I put some glue down over this, all right, I'm going to put my patch, I'm going to put my glue down. I'm going to cut a piece of patch, and we're going to then stick that patch on here. If the dirt behind the liner is all wet and there's water and everything behind there, and I start punching that patch down, flattening that patch down, the water behind is going to come through this hole in my liner and get this all wet. All right. So a little trick that I have done, I'm going to take another little piece of liner here. Bear with me. Is I'll cut another piece of liner. All right. And we can do two things. All right. One, I can take a small piece of liner and stick it through my hole into back behind the liner, flatten it out, and now when I open up my hole in my pond liner, I have a dry piece of liner behind it, so the water's not coming through. A little trick, right? Okay, so I have that. Now, if we have a bigger tear, if we have a big tear down our pond liner, and it's we can put a big long patch on it, but if it's something really big, what we might want to do is then use a separate piece of liner, right, like this, put a whole bunch of glue all around our big hole, all right, all around our hole. Take another piece of liner, put a whole bunch of glue around this liner, use our double-sided seam tape and go up here, across here, up here, across here, all right? And once our glue is all nice and tacky and everything, then we can stick this whole big patch right on top, right? Stick it right on top of our other hole, and we have underneath here, we have our double-sided seam tape. All right, we can pat this all down, make just a big patch out of pond liner. All right, once we're set with this, we're going to put our glue here again around the outside, a nice layer all around the two, and now we can use our double-sided seam tape on top and go down over and over and over, okay? So we're basically putting a big patch with our double-sided seam tape, right, on top, all around. So that's a good way to patch a big hole. Okay, so again, be careful when you have a hole in your liner that you're not getting mud and dirt and water, from the back through, all right? Maybe take another piece of liner and like I said, stuff it into that hole, lay it down flat in the back so that underneath your hole you have a clean, dry piece of liner to put your glue on and pat your push your patch or seam tape on nice and tight. Okay, all right. So I hope that kind of helped you out. We showed you a couple things here. A simple way just to patch a hole in a pond, patch a big hole in a pond, right? Or seam two liners together. So basically, like I said, it's not hard, it's not rocket science. It takes some time. Just please make sure that the liners that you are patching, fixing, seaming together are clean and dry. All right. Be careful seaming an old pond liner to a new one. All right, because if that old pond liner is not really nice and clean, the glue is not going to bond to it very well. It's not going to stick very long. The water's going to get through it, and then you're going to have massive problems with the liner seam failing. And the tape will start peeling, the seam tape will start peeling off, and it can be a really big nightmare. So yeah, just make sure the liners are very clean. Give the glue, I like to give it 24 hours to dry before I fill it up with water. So if I'm patching a hole here, if it's a bigger hole and I'm doing all these steps with the glue, double-sided seam tape, all the single-sided tape, the whole bit. If I have the ability to give it, 24 hours to dry and cure, I like doing that. However, I have put some glue down on a small hole and taken, a small piece of patch and fixed a small little hole. And as long as that glue isn't coming out of the sides of my patch, I can fill the pond up right away. All right, because this seam tape will stick, to the liner itself really well. So in that instance, yeah, I can fill it, patch it, and fill it right away. The reason why I like waiting at least 24 hours when I'm doing a big patch, fixing a big hole or seaming something together, is simply because this is a 45 mil rubber, okay? This will stretch. So if your pond is empty, your pond is dry, whatever, and you're fixing a big hole like this, okay, like on the side of a pond or something, when you put your patch on here, give it time to really dry and cure, because if you start filling it up with water right away, sometimes the water pressure, the weight of the water, will press this liner down in holes in the bottom or the side or whatever, and kind of stretch this a little bit. Okay, it can kind of stretch it out. And if there's extra tension, extra stress put on our patch or our seam tape before the glue is totally dried, all right, it's going to stretch it and pull it apart, just going to make it vulnerable to pulling off and leaking. All right, so make sure it's dried, cured, and good to go if it's something bigger. Small little hole, put your little bit of glue on it, put your patch on it, you should be okay. Now, if you don't have glue, all right, it's a small little hole, you can not use glue and just clean your liner off as best you can. Scrub that liner really nice and clean, get all the algae off of it. You want a nice fresh piece of liner. Dry it, little hair dryer, blow dryer, dry the area around it, and you can cut off a small, small little piece of this patch, little square, whatever you need. Stick it right on there, apply the pressure for a couple of minutes, make sure it's all smoothened out around the edges, and you can fill the pond up and you're good to go. All right, so that should last you pretty long. The good thing is, if you do one of these patches and later on down the road you find that the pond is starting to leak again, and it's possible that that patch, might have been compromised in some way, and if it starts to peel off a little bit, it's easy to refix it. These rubber liners are pretty easy to fix, but usually, generally, the patches work really well, especially if we're using the glue and the double-sided tape underneath it. And as I said, using another piece of liner as a patch in itself, to glue this down with double-sided tape on top of another one, and then use your 6-inch tape all around that, man, it's like you've done really good. All right? All right, so we're going to end it there. I hope I didn't confuse you too much, but I gave you some good ideas and pointers on how to seam and seal these liners together. Please hit the like button if it helped you out. Subscribe to my channel. Take a look around. I have a ton of videos here for you guys on all kinds of stuff. And I thank you for your support. And hopefully we'll see you back soon in another video. So take care. Have a great day. We'll see you soon. Bye.